me start my talk today. As a matter of fact, it in a sense consists of two parts. One part is about the history, which I believe that most of you are quite interested in. And the other one is about the current policy formation arena. So we have past and present today. And by the way, by looking at the questionnaires here from you, you are also interested in the current situation in Korea. So that I am a little bit relieved that the having two parts is not off the mark today. That's lucky, I guess. So let's start with the past. No. Actually, it is about the past and present and mixed part. And so I put the summary here because long story here and there is quite related with the economics, the field which some of you are not so much interested in, and some technical part is also there. So, and actually the main message is quite simple here, so that I put the summary first, and then all the other things, most of the other things that I am going to talk about from the point of view of the economist, you could easily miss. You can check it again later if you are interested. So let me summarize first, like I said. This is the talk starts with this. Is the market perfect? Yes, under certain conditions. Economists truly actually proved it. It's a sort of a truth here. Under certain conditions. And if it is correct, if the market is perfect, why do we need economic policy? That's the starting point of the question here. And of course, we need economic policy. That is why I could become a minister in Korea, I guess. And that is why we have the economic policy in every country in the world. So then that's the answer for this somewhat wrong or right question is still the policy is necessary because of market failure, this for income distribution and macroeconomic policy. That's the economist's answer to that second question here. But I guess it is not simply an economist answer. I think it is somewhat true. So if we focus only on, if we narrow our focus on the economic policy, still we need this policy on these three major areas, even if by the theory, under certain conditions, market was perfect. Okay, yeah, and then the real part here. Then how should we fit that practicality? That is the conclusion here today. So as a matter of fact, I've already done with my lecture. I will talk today. You can leave here. You can ask questions so that you cannot leave. Yeah, and then after that, it's all about certain technical parts here. But before that, I have to talk about some definitions. That is, first one is economy. And nobody here would know what economy is, but let me start with some Greek words, oikosnomos, that is said to be the origin of the English word economy. And this means that something to manage household or life. And then some classical economists, even even Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Karl Marx, and Malthus, and every others, even some marginalists like Alfred Marshall, all of them, our predecessors in the economics field, they focus on the one more thing. It is not just a managed household. It is about the relationship with the other people, So all of them should manage their own households. So that's why these days we call it a political economy, and that's why we can derive some questions like the ones that I'm going to talk today. So we are calling it this is basically political economic answers. And then the second part is one which I learned back in my middle school days. If there are people from some Chinese culture backed area, say some Vietnam, maybe anyone from Vietnam or China, or they know the Chinese character there, which means manage the world and save the people, kind of things. The 경세, 재민. And the first letter and the third letter forms the economic word 경제, which is economy in Korean. And in Japanese, it is geisai or whatever. I don't know whether that's true or not. They say this is I was brainwashed back in my teens that economy in Korean is originated from these 4 letters word, and I'm not so sure these days. However, it covers that part. It also covers the part of political area, that is interrelationships with other people. That's also in the essence of the economy, and that part is there. So that's why I'm introducing that here. And more than anything else, is there anyone who studied economics in your undergraduate or graduate years? Nobody. Oh, there. So those of you are well aware of this part, opportunity cost. Okay, economy, and then economics, which is the study of the economy, deals with the problem of the choice inevitably, and it happens. Why do we have to face the problem of the choice? The reason why is that this was scarce resources and insatiable or unlimited desire or unlimited want. So we cannot but face this serious problem of the choice. And that's why also we have new concept of something called opportunity cost, which is right. Oh, no, not there. Yeah, well, economics is a field to study. And no, it's an economic phenomena, right? Economics is simply to study economy, okay? And then study the problem of choice, because the essence of economy is the problem of the choice. Economics also should study the problem of choice, and there this concept called opportunity cost. And then this gentleman, he passed away about 6 months ago, I was told, and he was a radio talk show host in the United States. He was, because he's not alive any longer, and so he was very famous. He was the #1 top radio talk show host for a long time in America, and so he earned a lot of money. He is so famous. So some other journalist asked him, run for public office. Are you going to run for public office? That means, are you going to be a politician, or are you going to be a senator in the United States or a congressman in the United States? If you become one, then you will have more power. Choice of more power. He denied, I will not do that because I cannot afford the pay cut. Money is more important. So opportunity cost for this guy for running for public office is the sacrifice of huge money that he was earning as a #1 talk show host. That is why I put this man here, and unfortunately he passed away. So I think I have to change these photos here for some other guys. Before that, is there anyone who is interested in the basketball? Then there there was one who also passed away due to the airplane accident at the, what was his name? The speaker, please. Yes, Kobe Bryant, who appeared on the that famous book, Mankiw's economics book. And Mankiw took his example because Kobe Bryant was a very bright guy, I was told. And he had a very high score on the SAT, so he could go any top university in the United States. Instead, he became an NBA superstar. So his opportunity cost for being a superstar is giving up high education. He could be a good dealer in the Wall Street and earn a lot of money, but instead he became an NBA superstar. So opportunity cost is like that. Very simple. However, do not forget, it is a key concept. And when we are going to talk about economic policy, again, opportunity cost of the economic policy is the key concept. And that's why, in the conclusion, we have to worry about the practicality. Okay? Simple and nothing deep in this talk. What is economic policy? Application of economic theory to the real world. Here you are saying opportunity cost again. Now, economic policy should deal with the many people, generally the people in one nation, one country, sometimes people in whole world, right? And everybody, or at least some different parts of the people, different groups of people have different desire or different want or different hope, different wish. And those hopes or wishes of different group might not correspond. They generally will conflict. There will be a conflict. So then one policy which affects whole people will benefit some guys while it may harm or it may cost something to some other group of people. So obviously people who are benefited from this policy will vote for it or will be for that policy, while the other people who will get harmed will oppose that policy. So then the forming a policy and carrying out the policy should deal with this harmonization or resolution of these conflicts. And that is why we could see the pros and cons of the economic policy. So any economic policy, I should say, and you should understand that way, I believe. If you don't want that, then you can challenge me. So any economic policy has those pros and cons, no exception. And so good policy is maximize pros while minimizing cons. And that is the thing that I would like to talk. And the conclusion there is practicality. Practicality means exactly that, maximizing pros and minimizing cons. And would it be easy? It is not easy. That's why we need experts in economic policy. That's why we need a person like Professor Koo, who is teaching those kind of things, policy. So it is different from, in a sense, economic policy, which actually, economics department, as Mr. Koo, Dr. Professor Koo told you that I graduated from the Department of Economics, and I studied economics, which mainly focus on the theory, which is very important. Theory in the economics is the basis for the economic policy. However, actually carrying out, and applying economic policy, there's a very special area that economic theory cannot cover. That is why economic policy is important and at the same time it's hard to implement. Just an example, we all know, I guess most economists agree that the lowering the interest rate would boost the economy, and I guess there is no opposition for that theory in the economics field, whether it is Keynesian or whether it is a formerly monetarist or Chicago School guys these days, rational expectation people, or some other so-called mainstream economists. However, if we need to boost the economy, how much should we lower the interest rate, and also when? So these questions are in the area of economic policy formation. Economic theory generally does not say anything about these timings and quantities of lowering of the economy, the magnitude of the decrease in the interest rate. Okay, and that is why it is important and very hard. All right. So for that, we have to be very prudent, and we have to have one standard, that is practicality. Okay. Yeah. That again, that is question. So I repeat our question, the not question. I'm sorry. Conclusion over and over again. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, then you can interrupt me anytime during my talk. Well, I was told that there would be a Q&A session after my talk, but even during my talk, you can just interrupt me. All right. So let's go ahead, and policies have pros and cons. So problem of choice here as well. I call it the opportunity cost of the policy. It is not the official term here, but I believe that most economists agree with me on that. We can call it the opportunity cost. So if we take certain policy, that there is always a negative part, negative side effect. That is the opportunity cost. Right. Oh, it's some economics. You can just, some of you who study economics know this, and some of you who didn't might know this. Some of you, to some of you, it might be new, but there are very famous and very really fundamental thing, which is called two fundamental theorems of welfare economy. It says competitive equilibrium is parity efficient, and parity efficient distribution can be attained by competitive equilibrium. How can you prove it? You can prove it in many ways, and it is in most general way is done by Professor Arrow and Dubrow, and they both of them received the Nobel Prize in economics. And anyway, so it is true. They prove it with the great mathematics, so nobody can deny it. But problem is, there's what? Under certain conditions. If that condition is violated, then these theorems cannot hold, cannot be true. Anyway, so let's first start with the case, very utopia type economy, where all those required, necessary, certain conditions are met. Then what? Competitive equilibrium is equal to parity efficient distribution. That is what? It says efficient. So market economy, competitive equilibrium, we can simply say that is the equilibrium you can attain, you can get in the market economy, ideal market economy. So the ideal outcome of the ideal market economy is efficient. That's it. True, mathematically, logically true. Again, under certain conditions. So then, that was the actually starting point that I actually started this talk. Why do we need a policy? If this is true, at least, we don't need it. It doesn't seem to be economic policy necessary. Yeah? Right, but it is not. I always told you, and you already know, that market is not that perfect. You all know that. So what's the problem with the market? Even with these truth. That is, oh, I have to, it's state government. Oh, no, this time. First of all, this one, income redistribution. That two theorems, which is truth, does not say about the so-called optimal, I don't know what is optimal, or good distribution. Two theorems tell us that market economy, outcome of the market economy can be Pareto efficient, but Pareto efficient outcomes are, there are many Pareto efficient outcomes, and one of them is actually, to some at least, distributionally bad. So one person get most of everything in the economy, that could be efficient. And two fundamental theorems cannot exclude that distribution. Would we be happy if we are not that lucky guy? Maybe not. But theorem told us that is efficient. Yes. So most of us will not be happy with that. So we need income redistribution, and that is the necessary part of the policy, even if market works very well. And then next one is this backward kind of policy. It is quite related with the market failure. I'm going to talk about this. We'll be here again. And then something called market failure. Market failure is the case like the following. What if those certain conditions are not satisfied? Then we say that it is market failure. Market fails. So then in that case, because of that violation of the certain conditions, two theorems cannot hold. So market outcome in the market is not efficient in that case. So these three parts are the parts that policy is necessary. Okay? So then I should go back to introduce some people here, which does not require any economic theory or something irks you. I'm sorry. The government. Now, why do we have to say something about the government right here? Is because in the market, not only in the market economy, but in our human history, government is the only entity which can formulate, carry out the policy, not only economic policy, but any kind of policy. So we have to worry about the government first of all. And having a government is related with the political process. So if we extend this kind of talks further, then we have to really worry about the politics as well. Today, of course, we are not going to talk about that. We don't have time, first of all. And that is why our school here has some political scientists. So policy area, even in the economic policy area, we have to think about something or some relationship with the politics. I am talking about this not simply because I was in the politics for 8 years, but I know that it is very important. Politics is very important. Somehow, let's skip that part anyway. So a state or government, state is government in our talk, a very brief talk here. It might not be equal, but we will say the nation, state, country, government, they are all equal here, all equal entity, all right? Then, is there anyone who studied the philosophy or the Western philosophy in the, there, you know at least, or you, oh, good, you know at least Plato or Platon in Greek. He had the Republic, and also you know the Confucius or Confucians And so in the Western history or Western political history or Western intelligent history, the Plato type of country, the benevolent dictator, covers everything. The wise people governed ordinary people. The same, as a matter of fact, is by the Confucianism. Actually, these wise people in the Orient, the Confucians, they have to govern the country even if there is a king or queen. Monarchs or monarchy had to follow the advices of these wise people in the Orient. That's their idea. So, but they were the same. However, the socialist state, that's a different story here. Since I don't have that much time. However, there's a guy named Mr. Hobbes, Lionel Hobbes, gives us some kind of due, gave us some kind of due view, that is a bellum omnium contra omnes, the war of all against all. To avoid that sounds crazy, or that sounds awful, right? Fight or war of all against all of us against all of us. We have to fight. We have the war. We have to avoid that. Then human right is voluntarily transferred to the sovereign by the contract. So it is the beginning of social contract theory. That's the modern theory, not so modern, but the theory that we still believe in. So nation should do that for what? To avoid the war of all against all. And nation has that power by whom? By all of us. We voluntarily transfer our own right to the nation for the nation to do something good. Economic policy is like that. They should, a nation or a government should do something good for us, and that is the reason why they have the power voluntarily transferred from us to do something. You know, the economic policy, very important economic policy is, one policy is that tax. Tax is the kind of coercion from the moving coercion of the moving our property, the private property, to some others. Why do we do that? To do this. If we understand this, then everything else is easy. So that's why, there's a Plato, the left one. It is, as you know, those of you who have been to a Vatican Museum, then you have seen this picture by Raphael, and the person with the white beard, the older person is Plato, and the younger one with the black beard is Aristotle, as you know. So Plato is there, very wise. People like him should govern the nation, and that was the past theory, I guess. And this man is Hobbes, Hobbes, and that the right one is the cover of that famous book by him, where he first emphasize or the talk about this voluntary transfer or the war of all against all. That's Leviathan. Leviathan is a very big, some very big monster in the Bible, Holy Bible, but here you can see it doesn't look like a monster, but as you can see, it is very big. It is a cover page of that book. I didn't see it in that way, but somehow it is that. Very big, as you can see. If you look at this picture right on carefully, then there are small houses, castles, and people. Then you can understand. Imagine the size of this Leviathan there, which doesn't look. Who doesn't look like a monster? It should not be a monster, That's so one that we voluntarily transfer our rights. Okay, and do I have the time? It is also the episode in the Bible, and actually this excerpt is made by the Professor Harvey Rosen, who is now retired, the former professor at the Princeton University in the United States. He's an Orthodox Jew, and so this part is from the Old Testament. Old Testament is a testament or Bible to even for the Jewish people. So, and this part is actually quite well explain the problem of the government. So this is what the king who will reign you over. This part, the story goes like this. The Jewish people want to have a king. Before that, they don't have a king here. Samuel, who is a wise man, who was a wise man who ruled, in a sense, per se, ruled the Jewish Israel at that time. However, Samuel was not the king. So they want a king. They want a government. And Samuel told these Jewish people that king, very good. You would like to have king, then you might have. But once you have a king, then you will have these kind of problems as well. So here said that he means king. King will take your son, serve with his chariots and horses. What is it? Duty of defense. If you have a king, if you have a nation now, if you have policy, then you have to give up. You have to sacrifice something of yours. You have a lot of duties. Duty of defense. We all know that. Military duty. We have to do it. And then there are duty of taxation and duty of work. So Mr. Samuel finally warned them, if with this, will you do this? Will you have a king? He said, when that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen. Please, please. He gets too much from us. And the Lord will not answer you in that day. Do not answer, that means saying no. Once you have a king, that is your fate. All right? So even with this possibility, will you have a king? And then they say, we want king before us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and go out before us and fight over battles. Defense, national security. For that, we need a king. Even if king has a lot of problems. Okay? More than 3,000 years ago, they have the same idea. They have the same thought that we have today. Okay, now, income redistribution, so many tools, social insurance, public aid. Public aid is very important. And social insurance and public aid, actually, this man is who? Oh, yeah, Otto von Bismarck, the prime minister of the Preußen, who actually was the leader to unify the Germany in 1871. And he was the man who he was said to be, and it is actually true, he was the man who first introduced social insurance. And then social insurance that we are seeing, the one social insurance system that we are seeing today is actually originated from him, but it is actually implemented after the Great Depression in 1929. So generally during 1930s and even after 1940s, after the Second World War, social insurance and welfare policy is a very important part of the government. And that also requires a lot of money. So size of the government compared to GDP becomes increase very rapidly after 1930s. And second, macroeconomic policy. Keynes. Look at the situation after the 1929 Great Depression. Classical economists told us labor markets should find out the way to get the equilibrium. Although at that time, two fundamental theorems were not proved yet, but they have that kind of idea. Market resolves many problems. In the labor market, if there's something so-called, not like depression, but the bad times in economy comes, then what? There would be unemployment. If there's unemployment, then there will be a lowering of the wages. Lowering of the wages means reducing the price of the labor. That means there would be a demand for the labor, so that it will find out some due equilibrium, but still we'll have some due equilibrium there. That was the anticipation of the classical economists, but after depression that didn't happen. Still going down, further wage going down. And then Keynes knew that after a long time, this kind of equilibrium will be recovered. However, when? He once said that after a long run, we all die. So then we have to do something to resolve this kind of plight. So very aggressive role of the government is necessary. That's what Keynes thought. That's what Keynes saw. And he recommended a lot of things, a lot of policy suggestions, and that's why we have macroeconomic policy these days. Some people can say, oh, we don't have that kind of depression or that kind of crisis, economic crisis. Why do we need macroeconomic policy? To avoid that. That's one answer. And even, that even the economic crisis in 2008, to resolve that, we need some kind of macroeconomic policy. So macroeconomic policy is very important of the government these days. And market failure. I cannot go over this. I think we don't have that much time. So the typical question is, typical answer is about public good. Public good has two very peculiar property: non-excludability and the non-rivalry. So then what will happen? If you want to provide that kind of good, say, for example, defense is a very good example, then you cannot sell it in the market. There's a company to produce and sell the defense, which would not be very difficult these days. And then what? Some of you will say, oh, you say, I'm the owner of that company. Call it the Samsung defense economy. Samsung. The out volume of the Samsung electronics is greater than our whole defense expenditure per year. So you can easily form that kind of company there. So let's say I'm the CEO. Then I should. Why are you laughing? I'm not that kind of person. So I would like to sell this new product of our economy, defense, like this one. This is a Samsung phone. So I'll put this kind of national economy level. I'm sorry, national defense level, and I would like to sell it. And then by selling that, I get some profit there. So good business there, here, and so on. But these have two properties: non-rivalry and what is it? Non-excludability. You know that. Oh, I would say I don't need it. Even with that, I could get the same benefit with the one who actually paid that, who bought this defense, who buy the defense. Think about it. So, is that person the only wise or bright person, clever person? Everybody says same. So everybody else says, no, I don't need it, because someone else, in the belief that someone else will pay for it. Good example of the market failure. Well, for the theory, you need far more than that. So to handle this, again, government is recalled. They have to do something to fail. Okay. This is by Renaissance painter called Ambrogio Lorenzetti, and this, some of you might see this picture. It is in Siena, in Italy, and it is a picture of the good government. And think about that. If you check this with say Wikipedia, then you can see a lot of good explanation there. Only thing I would like to say is it is a picture of the good government. As you can see, it must be a picture of the good government, particularly if you compare this with the next paintings. However, there on the this side, even under the good government, there are people who are handcuffed. So he says, it is not by explanation, but this expert's explanation. Even for the good government, we need a law, order. So if they don't comply with this rule or law, then they have to be punished. For the good government, okay? For the good government, you should have that. If you want to think about the politics, then you have to do that. It should be with the system, law is necessary for the good policy. That is the reason why I put this picture here. And as you can see, this bad government. You can see this must be the painting of picture of the bad government. King looks like some devil here, and there are some monsters, and so I don't have to talk much about that, I think. This part, I think, probably I can talk about then when you ask some things, and then it is our sort of structure here in Korea. And I think the same kind of structure everywhere in any other country, and this and this. And now, finally, I would like to cover up, I'm sorry, I would like to wrap up my talk today. Some questions about the leadership of the policymakers, and top policymaker must be the president or prime minister, of course. It should depend on the system. Go back to that painting there. That is one part. Setting up the right rule, right law, and having the right order, all these depend upon the system. I'm not so sure that there's even in the Western part or Oriental part, in the past, great scholars have talked about this system. You should not rely on the goodwill of the people. That is very important, of course, but sometimes there are people who want to utilize it, who want to violate it for their own benefit, so then there must be some law. That is the reason why we have the government or nation, have the policy based upon agreed rules, pre-agreed rules. That's one thing I would like to emphasize here. And also systems, and well, meetings should be actively used. This is the actual sort of advice from me after my experiences. So we can talk about this later. I think other points. Again, political economy, big directions, big part. of the policy is actually very, say, politically formed, big part, big pictures. You have to win the elections to have your agenda of carrying out your own policy. You have to win the elections. And to win the elections, you have to appeal to the general public, people of the nation, by showing them what you are going to do when you become president or when you become prime minister. That's a political part, and that is the actually direction of the general policy. Then, that big picture, or big agenda, does, as we know, all these would not resolve anything, as a matter of fact. It should be done with the details. And that's the part, that is the arena that these kind of so-called experts or steps are getting in. They have their own expertise in the details. Bureaucrats, for example. So they have to form the details of those big agendas. And in forming that and in carrying out that, they have to show their ability to what? To maximize the good part, benefit, pros, and minimize cons. They know it because they are expertise. They have their own expertise in that, and they. So big agenda by politicians, not simply the president or president's political steps. They have that, and they know, they understand that this kind of policy agenda is necessary for the good of the nation, for the good of the people, so they give it out. However, to have it practically, then they have to rely on these experts. Sometimes they are experts in the universities, experts in the research institutes, and most of all, government bureaucrats. All those things are here. And finally, again, practicality. You know this, to catch the mouse, it is not important whether a cat is black or white. This said by the Mr. Deng Xiaoping in China. He was till his death, he was a diehard communist, but he didn't hate the capitalism. I'd hate, but he knew that there's at least some good part of the capitalism. So he also knew that China, communist China, should use that good parts of the capitalism. And the result, we all know what's going on in China now. So here I said political or ideological cause is important, but should not be overemphasized. Okay, big picture is based upon your idea, political idea. However, that should also be alleviated or might be changed if necessary for practicality to maximize benefit pros and minimize cons. And well, the last part is very the words that I like, but it is from the very old saying in Chinese, old scholars of Chinese, Lao Tzu. Let's skip. Now, probably this part I added in the last hours of preparing this lecture, this talk. Two things to think back. In Korean case, for example, after the Second War, there were basically three paradigms. Even today, it's the same. It's a pure market system, a pure planning system like Soviet Union, and planning-based market. In most cases, this third part is the approach adopted by all the third world countries, including Korea, India, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Mongolia, and Mongolia, yes, and also many African countries and so on. Even with the third approach, there were two very different approaches. And for the third one is about the autarky. The other one is open economy for the externality. And Korea took the second part, and that was a quite a real success compared to the other countries which relied on the autarkic systems. And China, after Deng Xiaoping, they opened it. And China is the true beneficiaries of the globalization. I think that is important. And second, also important is for the beginning of the opening, developing economy, not the developed one, corruption. Fight against the corruption is very important. Korea had been fairly successful, but it does not mean that in Korean case there was no corruption at all. We had a lot of corruption, but compared to the other countries, we, I guess, at least fairly succeeded in the reduction of the corruption. And I think that's really important. So we have to think about these 2 points. Again, I believe practicality, Korea, China, and again this conclusion, again, and there are two leaders, Mr. Park Chung-hee and Mr. Deng Xiaoping, and rest of it, this is about my some pictures here. That gentleman is at that time Deputy Prime Minister of the Uzbekistan. G20. I guess there's, I don't know whether Mr. Scott Morrison, who is now a Prime Minister of Australia, must be there somewhere. And person right next to me, to my right, is still the governor of the Bank of Korea, and next to me is Mr. Asodaro in Japan, and so on and so on. And this man is former minister, the Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew in the United States, and so on. AIIB, there to the left, big person is President Xi Jinping, Christine Lagarde, then the governor of the IMF, now the European Central Bank. Oh, good. The end. So, again, and the conclusion, practicality. Don't forget it. Okay, now the questions.